For a long time, Citizen has been seen a certain way: affordable, reliable, simple. And to be fair, that reputation didn't come from nowhere. But here's the problem. That image hasn't really kept up with what the brand is doing today, because quietly, over the past few years, Citizen has been improving. Not through hype, but through execution. Better materials, stronger specs, more presence on the wrist. The watches changed. People's perception didn't. So in this video, we're looking at 5 Citizen watches that completely challenge that idea. And if you still think Citizen is just entry-level, this might change your mind. Let's start with one of their most capable divers. The first watch on this list immediately challenges the idea that Citizen is only about simple entry-level designs. This is the Citizen Funkchronograph AT8300, and it makes that clear from the moment you look at it. At first glance, the dial feels complex. Multiple subdials, aviation-inspired markings, and layered information spread across the surface. But unlike many watches in this category, it doesn't feel cluttered. It feels organized. Every element has a clear role, and the layout comes across as deliberate, rather than decorative. That same sense of control carries into the case design. The watch has presence, but it doesn't depend on oversized dimensions to achieve it. The pushers respond with a firm, precise feel, and the bracelet has enough weight to feel solid without becoming too heavy. And then there's the technology behind it. The AT8300 runs on Citizen's EcoDrive system, powered by light, removing the need for battery changes or regular winding. It also features radio-controlled timekeeping, syncing with atomic signals to maintain a high level of accuracy across different regions. On the wrist, it feels confident without being overwhelming. Technical, but not busy. And this is where the perception begins to change. Because this isn't a simplified entry-level chronograph. It feels like a fully realized piece of equipment. Something built with purpose rather than designed just for appearance. And that's exactly why it earns the first spot on this list. The second watch on this list shifts the focus from technical complexity to something far more purpose-driven. This is the Citizen Promaster EcoDrive Diver 300M. At first glance, it's obvious this watch wasn't made to follow trends. The case feels solid and dense, giving an immediate sense of confidence. The bezel rotates with firm, precise resistance, and the large markers and hands are clearly designed for legibility rather than decoration. Nothing in the design feels unnecessary. One of the key details here is the 300 meters of water resistance. That moves this watch beyond the typical dive category and into something more serious. A tool built to handle real pressure without compromise. That capability isn't just a number on paper. It reflects the overall approach behind the watch: durable, reliable, and made for real-world use. Inside, Citizen's EcoDrive system powers everything, meaning no battery changes and no winding routine. It's built to run consistently with minimal effort, which completely changes the ownership experience. That kind of reliability is what makes the watch feel more like equipment than an accessory. On the wrist, it feels secure and well-grounded, substantial without being oversized, with a strong tool watch presence that feels intentional. And this is where the perception shifts again. Because this doesn't feel like a basic diver, it feels like a professional instrument that just happens to be more accessible than most people expect. The third watch on this list takes a different direction, moving away from tool-focused designs and into something more refined and material-driven. This is the Citizen Super Titanium Automatic NJ180. At first glance, the watch feels clean and controlled. The dial avoids unnecessary complexity, focusing instead on balance and proportion. The blue tone has a subtle depth that shifts under the light, giving it a more composed and mature look than you might expect. But the real difference becomes clear once it's on the wrist. The super titanium construction makes the watch noticeably lighter than stainless steel, yet it never feels hollow or fragile. Instead, it feels smooth, solid, and well-finished, with the added advantage of increased scratch resistance thanks to Citizen's hardening treatment. That combination changes how the watch wears over time. It stays comfortable over long periods, while still maintaining a clear sense of structure and quality. That level of refinement is something you usually associate with more premium materials. Inside, the watch runs on a Citizen automatic movement, delivering reliable and consistent performance for everyday use, without relying on battery power. And this is where the perception shifts again. Because this doesn't feel like a basic entry-level automatic. It feels like a well-executed, thoughtfully built watch that quietly competes with pieces from a much higher price category. The fourth watch on this list brings the focus back to functionality, but in a very different way. This is the Citizen Promaster Sky AT8300. At first glance, the dial appears busy. Multiple subdials, aviation-style markings, and a large amount of information across the surface. But after a few seconds, that complexity starts to feel structured rather than overwhelming. Everything is positioned with intention, giving the watch a clear instrument-like identity. The case carries a solid, confident presence on the wrist without becoming oversized or difficult to wear. The bracelet supports that feeling, offering a stable and well-balanced fit that reinforces the watch's technical character. What really sets this model apart is the technology behind it. The AT8300 features radio-controlled timekeeping, allowing it to sync with atomic clocks across multiple regions for consistent accuracy. It also includes world time functionality, making it genuinely practical for travel rather than simply visually complex. And like other advanced Citizen models, it runs on Eco Drive, powered by light, eliminating the need for battery changes or daily winding. On the wrist, it feels precise and controlled, with a strong sense of purpose behind every detail. And this is where the perception shifts once again. Because this doesn't feel like a simple entry-level watch. It feels like a piece of aviation equipment adapted for the wrist, technical, capable, and far more serious than most people expect from the brand. The final watch on this list takes a different approach, focusing less on complexity and more on long-term practicality. This is the Citizen Eco Drive 365. At first glance, the design feels clean and controlled. The dial is simple, the layout is balanced, and nothing feels unnecessary. It doesn't try to stand out through bold details, it relies on clarity and proportion instead. But what really defines this watch isn't how it looks, it's how it works. The Eco Drive 365 is built around extended power efficiency, allowing it to run for long periods with minimal exposure to light. That means fewer interruptions, less maintenance, and a more consistent everyday experience. That level of consistency is something many watches promise, but very few actually maintain over time. And that focus changes how the watch feels to own. You don't think about it. You don't manage it. It simply works in the background, quietly and reliably. That simplicity becomes part of its appeal, especially for everyday wear. On the wrist, it feels composed and well-balanced, with a design that leans toward refinement rather than excess. And this is where the final perception shift happens. Because while many watches try to impress through complexity, this one does the opposite. It simplifies the experience, and in doing so, delivers something that feels unexpectedly premium. And that's exactly what makes it the perfect way to close out this list.